Hi everyone, welcome to Clawfoot Farm. I'm Samantha and it is September, it's fall, there is a little bit of chill in the air in the early mornings and later in the evenings. You can really tell that the sun is getting lower in the sky and that means it is harvest time. So we are bringing in all kinds of things from the garden, lots of zucchini, lots of squash. I'm spending this morning doing some onions. So what we are going to do is make some caramelized onions to put in breads, to put in soups, to eat on even good on like a baked potato. So that's what we're going to do today. So these onions we grew in our garden, and this recipe takes about 8 pounds of onions, which is this is about 4 pounds, so you fill this colander up twice and you'll get 8 pounds of onions. And what we're going to do is just peel these up and cut them into quarters. I always put my cutting board over my sink so that I can use my sink kind of as a compost bucket. I just put it right off of my cutting board and into the sink. But we're just going to peel these and then cut them into fourths. And if there's anything in the center, like that one looks like it was starting to grow, we're going to take that out. So we just have them into fourths, and then we're just going to put them aside so that we can put them in the food processor to slice them up. So I'm just going to continue doing this. All right, so we have our 8 pounds of onions all peeled and quartered, and now we're ready to slice them. I'm using the food processor. If you don't have a food processor, you're more than welcome to just slice these up as you like, but the food processor makes it go a lot easier and keeps you from crying so much as you're doing it. So I have the slicer blade attachment hooked up here onto our food processor. There it goes. And we're just going to add these right into the top and slice them up. Turn on the food processor. Just keep adding these in here. We might have to stop and empty the bowl, and that's fine if it gets full. But once these are already quartered, this goes pretty quick. Oh. All right, so our bowl is getting a little bit full. So I'm going to turn this off and empty it out. Oh yeah, that one's full. We have our onions all thinly sliced and from the food processor, and we're going to add them here to my pot. This is a Dutch oven pot. It's a club, which is, I think my grandmother had this, and it works. It's a heavy bottom pot. You really want a pot with a heavy bottom, and this will be pretty full of these onions, and that's okay because as we cook these, they will reduce by about half. So I put a little bit of olive oil in the bottom, and then I'm just going to add that right into there. So then I'm going to take about a tablespoon of salt and sprinkle it right on the top there, and then mix it in. And we are using sea salt. If you're doing this, you can actually just use Himalayan salt, you can use sea salt. I would stay away from any salt that has iodine in it, just because it would add that flavor to the onions, and we're not looking for that. So the salt here actually will act to draw out the moisture from the onions. So that's why we're using the salt, not so necessarily for the flavor. Okay, so now we're gonna put this onto the stove on low, and then we're gonna cook it down. Okay, this is how full the pot is on the stove, and that is okay. So I'm going to put this on the stove. It's on medium low to low, depends on how hot your stove is. You don't want these to brown or burn at all, so right now I'm going to put it on low and I'm going to cover it up. Oh, it just barely fits here. And turn that down to low, and I'm going to let that simmer or cook down slowly on the stove for about an hour now. So what's going to happen is the onions are going to release all of their moisture and they're going to reduce by about 1/3. So that's what we're going to do, and while that's cooking, I'm going to go do some other things in the garden. Good morning, ladies. Good morning, girls. You ready for a nice day of making some eggs? Remember those poppies that I planted in the spring in a pot, and I said I planted them too thick, and then I just moved the whole thing to the garden in like a big clump. And now it's kind of all floppy and everything, but it's really pretty. It's got this really paper. Oh, well, that one's like silk paper. It's got this really silk papery look about it. And I'm hoping that it will reseed in this garden space for next year. The hydrangea is perfect size right now. I mean, just, it's so lovely to just go sit on that bench over there and be surrounded by the hydrangea. So lovely. All right, so it's been about an hour, and we're gonna take a look at these onions. And as you can see, the liquid has all come out of the onions, and that has cooked down by about 1/3 now. So now we're ready to do the next step in the caramelized onions. I'm going to leave this on low. We're going to add a 1/2 cup of sugar, so just regular granulated sugar. We're going to add a 1/2 cup of red wine vinegar. We're going to add a 1/2 cup of red wine. There we go. And then we're going to add about, there's probably about 7 sprigs of thyme that came out of the garden today, so just fresh thyme. I'm just going to add that right on the top. So now we're going to leave the pot uncovered and let this cook down until the liquid goes away. So I'm going to come back through and stir this about every 10 or 15 minutes, and it's going to cook down. This part actually takes a little bit longer, so it's going to take probably 2 or 3 hours on low for this to cook. Okay, so it's been about 4 hours that the onions have been cooking. Ooh, they're hot. So we're going to take a look and see what they look like now. The onions have caramelized to a nice brown color. Most of the liquid has come out, and they just mound really nicely up on the spoon. So this is what your onions should look like when they are perfectly done caramelizing. So they're caramelized, but they're not stuck to the bottom of the pan. And that's what they look like. There you go. So what I'm going to do now is go through and pull out the stems of the thyme. We put a bunch of thyme in there to add some flavor, and now all of the thyme, the leaves have come off, and we're just left with some stems. So I'm pulling the stems out because you don't want to eat those. So you pull the stems out, and this is ready to pack up and store. So now that you have all of these caramelized onions, what do you do with them? Well, what I do is to save them. I don't can them because they are so low acid. I don't have a recipe for that. But I do freeze them, and I use the 1/2 pint jars to freeze because this just gives us just enough onions for a couple of meals here. And I put them in the 1/2 pint jars and just put the lids on them and put them into the freezer. And they will keep there in the freezer for about 6 months. And then that's pretty much as long as I would want them to stay in the freezer anyways. We also, what you do with them, so if you have caramelized onions, these are the perfect topping to baked potatoes. You can put them on scrambled eggs or in an omelet. You can even put them with cottage cheese. It tastes really good. Just anywhere where you need a little bit of a savory pop. So that's where we use them. I also make a really good onion tart. And if I get to that, I will put that on video as well. But it's really simple. It's just a tart crust, and you just put the caramelized onions right on top, and it's done. So it's very simple, but a very elegant dish as well. So that's what I do with some of our onions. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you do like it, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. And thanks for coming along with me and helping me cook these onions. And I'll see you later. Bye.